Hi everyone, this is Mason Winfield with another installment of Psi-Friday with Mason. We are in the early part of March 2026, and I'm going to, in honor of the festive season, talk about something that honors St. Patrick. We will discuss St. Patrick and the snakes. First of all, Ireland was Christianized a lot earlier than Britain. And it's farther away from the mainland, and you really wonder why were the Irish Christianized so much earlier than the English? And the answer probably is that, or at least it's been speculated, that the teachings of Jesus were so close to those of the Druids that people just said, what's the fight about? Jesus said this, well, the Druids think that's cool. So that's one reason. And there's even a strong speculation, that the early forms of Irish Christianity that they often called Chaldaic Christianity, it had a lot of Druidism in it. And I kind of like that. That's pretty cool stuff. But at any rate, St. Patrick, I don't think there's any exact dates for him, but he was probably half Roman. He was probably a Romanized Briton, part Roman, part Briton, who was kidnapped by pirates as a youth and taken to Ireland. And he was one of the great Christianizers, the great baptizers. He was a remarkable being. And in those days, you didn't just stand up in church and pray. You traveled, you visited people, and it was almost like you sold a new faith through yourself. You had to bring the goods. And there are many stories about St. Patrick getting into magic duels with Druids to see whose god was stronger. And there's this one story I remember where St. Patrick and the Druid were sitting in this unique cottage, and one half of the cottage is made of green, vibrant wood. It shouldn't catch fire. And the other side is like soaked in gasoline and all this kind of stuff. And St. Patrick and the Druid are on one side, and they're going to have an occult war and see whose god will light whose side. And the Druid's in the green side, and St. Patrick is in the improvised explosive device. And yet the Druid side, the green side, is the one that catches fire, and he agrees to go with Christianity. But I should probably get back to our subject of St. Patrick and the snakes. Ireland does not have native snakes. When the humans got to Ireland, there were no snakes there. England, which is just across the span of water, they have snakes. The continent has snakes. Why does Ireland not have snakes? Native snakes, I'm sure they got zoos and all that. I hope nobody lets one go. But during the Ice Ages, let's go back to the last Ice Age. Let's say it's 20,000 years ago. France, England, Ireland are all connected by a landmass, because the ice ages, the glaciers, are sucking up the ocean's water. So the water is all piled up at the poles in the form of ice, which hauls it up, and so the water levels are a lot lower. So a lot of things that today are the English Channel, the Irish Sea, they were walkable. So the animals would get all over. But see, 20,000 years ago, it was too cold for snakes. So England didn't have, or the landmass that is today's England did not have snakes. The landmass that is Ireland did not have snakes. Probably most of Europe didn't have them. The snakes would have been Africa, other parts of the areas that were still relatively warm. But when the glaciers started letting go and the earth started warming up, the water filled in around between England and Ireland. So it cut off Ireland when it was still too cold for snakes. A couple thousand years later, it's warm enough for snakes, and England doesn't have them yet, but then the water dries up some more and the snakes get in and England has them, and then the water level comes in again, and all of a sudden you've got the situation of Ireland not having snakes, England having snakes, me perhaps not delivering the best explanation I could, and in this remarkable circumstance, that explains why the myth that St. Patrick's banned the snakes is probably inaccurate. Incidentally, my friends, the snake is a negative symbol throughout most of the West. The Western white guy West. For some reason, the Europeans, for them, the snake was an ominous symbol. And the dragon, the big snake, they are symbols of the earth force. And you notice all the European myths, the knight, overwhelms the dragon. His job is to kill the earth force, the representative of the earth force. It was like something that the West found intimidating. The West opposed the earth force. It could account for some of the difficulties we sometimes encounter in our psyches. But the Asian dragon, the Asian earth force, is much different. Over there, it's scary and it's powerful, but it's not really something that needs to be opposed. It's something that you sort of work with it, And at any rate, that little diatribe on mythology there, I'm sure we'll come back to something like that someday again soon. For now, have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day. Don't get too crazy, and I know I won't. So I look forward to seeing you next week.